Well, today I'm joined by Deputy Commissioner Mal Lanyon and to primarily and first and foremost pay tribute to Assistant Commissioner Peter Thurtell and the nearly 400 New South Wales police officers who today worked under very, very difficult circumstances. I'm also announcing the formation of Strike Force Seasoned, which will see 22 detectives work from now until whenever it concludes, identifying as many people as possible who attended today's incident and have them charged. So far, more than 90 infringements have been issued, 57 people have been charged, some of them with multiple offences. What we saw today were 3,500 very selfish bullheads, people that thought that the law didn't apply to them. There is no doubt in my mind that at least one individual there today had COVID. It is statistically impossible for us not to consider that. I'm appealing to all 3,500 people to go and get tested tomorrow, if not for themselves, for their sake of their families and their friends. This selfish, inappropriate behaviour is what is going to continue this city into lockdown. It cannot go on. We will certainly be seeing a number of people contacted by police from tonight to have to answer for themselves and their behaviour, and particularly the ringleaders. My heart goes out to the many officers that were injured today. Some of them appear to be seriously injured, but at the moment, most of the injuries from police have been minor. But of course, over the course of the evening, we will see more and more officers return from this particular operation, and there's no doubt in my mind some of them have paid a very high price for the work that they have done today. The appeal is simple. If you don't want to be in lockdown, obey the rules. This is not a time for us to push the envelope, not a time for us to game the system. This is a time for us to all be at home, get tested, get our jab, and then we can get on with life. Nobody wants to see this city in lockdown for a moment longer than is necessary. Not the government, not the community, certainly not the police force. Can I also pay tribute to the many people today that have done the right thing? What we have seen across the state is actually quite a fairly high level of compliance, and that's fantastic, and that needs to continue. The New South Wales government is working from right now to bring forward any easing of restrictions that we possibly can, but it won't occur while we have people like we saw today doing the wrong thing. It won't occur when we have people like we saw today making sure that their voice is heard through illegal activities. I'm hoping that we issue 3,500 infringement notices. I'm hoping that we have people before the court, and I really hope we can get some charges and convictions out of today's work by the New South Wales Police. It's essential for people to get the message, and those that are calling for it to occur again next week, look out, because these 400 officers will turn into 4,000 if needs be. I'll now hand over to the Deputy Commissioner.
Thank you, Minister. I'm very proud of the 350 to 400 police who were on duty today who responded to such a large crowd of self-entitled people. The fact that police officers were assaulted, the fact that police officers had things thrown at them and on them, the fact that people thought that it was appropriate to throw things at police horse is an absolute disgrace. As the Minister has announced, Strike Force Season has commenced. The work for us starts now. 57 people have been arrested so far today. It is completely unacceptable behaviour. That so many people in this community have given up so much to ensure that the spread of COVID does not happen, and for these self-entitled people to think that they could have a protest today, think that they could assault police, think that they could do the types of things that they have done today is completely unacceptable to us. We have 22 detectives currently investigating matters from today. We've been overwhelmed and thoroughly satisfied that the members of the community have already started contacting us with social media footage showing the persons that are responsible for some of these offences. Can I ask those people that do have footage and those people that have information in relation to the people who have committed these offences, you can either upload on a portal of Crime Stoppers or contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. Our work starts now. Anyone who thinks they can get away with the type of actions we saw today will be chased by the law to the full extent of the law. Thank you.
Minister, is there a disconnect between the government and thousands of its citizens? What's going on?
Well, the only thing I saw today was in a city of 8 million people, 3,500 people decided that they knew the law but were going to flout it. So no, anybody who says that they don't understand the laws came from Mars in a bubble, because right now these laws have been with us for a month. They know the rules. They were flouting the rules. They were boasting about the fact that the rules didn't apply to them. So there is no excuse for ignorance of the law at the moment. There is no excuse for infecting your family and friends with COVID-19, given that health advice is so tight.
But why do they have that idea to go out and protest? They're clearly, they don't care.
They don't care. That's quite right. And they're the sort of people that are going to prolong this lockdown. And I can assure you, when we start identifying them, I reckon their own communities are going to be pretty cranky with them as well. So they don't have to worry about the New South Wales Police. If we have to continue this lockdown, I have no doubt that anybody that's been identified with today's events will certainly receive some very choice words from their own friends and family.
Deputy Commissioner, I'm just interested to know where this anger has come from. Is this something that has been bubbling away under the surface, or were you guys caught by surprise at the numbers that turned out today?
We certainly knew that there was a planned but unauthorised protest scheduled for today. We had a significant police presence. Obviously, in these types of protests, it's not just genuine people who think that they have a cause that they wish to speak about. These types of protests actually get agitators from a range of society to come to them. The fact that so many people thought that violence was appropriate probably indicates that the type of people who joined this protest today were not here for any genuine protest about COVID.
Because you would support a peaceful protest, as with the Minister.
The police are always supportive of a peaceful protest, however, we're in a unique environment. At the moment, any type of protest that breaches the health orders cannot be tolerated simply because it puts the rest of the community in jeopardy.
Could each individual that attended today, could they face a $1,000 fine?
Each of the individuals that were present today could face a range of penalties. It may well be more significant than a $1,000 fine. We've already arrested and we will put people before the court, and as I said, Strikeforce seasoned will continue to investigate and, where appropriate, put people before the court. The penalty could be more significant.
Are you able to shed more light on the officers that were injured or assaulted today?
It's still very early, so I can't tell you the nature of those injuries. What I would say is we've still got a lot of very brave police out there who are still returning here. We will obviously give them all the support that they required. Our initial reports are that officers aren't significantly injured, but looking at some of the footage that I've seen, that was more for luck than for any planning. So can I just commend those officers for their bravery, and again say to those people who think that was appropriate, we will continue to investigate and put you before the court.
Are you concerned that people were coming out of those strict lockdown suburbs?
I'm concerned that people would think that it was appropriate to congregate at all. The Premier and the government have been very clear, the Chief Health Officer has been very clear. This is not a time for people to be out of their homes. Coming out for this purpose, this type of dissidence, only spreads virus and only ensures that the rest of the community who continue to do such a great job are put at jeopardy of coming out of lockdown.
Of the people who you did arrest, do you know where they came from?
It's too early for that. Obviously with 57 people arrested, they will come from a variety of areas. That is something we work closely with health just to make sure that we can minimise any potential spread that comes out of today's incident.
Were anyone wearing masks, or were they arrested because of the virus? Did anyone wear masks?
There was a mix. There were certainly some masks worn in there, but obviously that doesn't excuse the behaviour. And as you've heard from the Chief Health Officer, a mask is not a 100% guarantee the virus can't spread. The fact that there were so many people so close together is obviously of great concern.
Are you concerned that these people who, as we just heard, some of them openly saying they're coming from these lockdown areas of Fairfield and Liverpool, are you concerned that it appears that a lot of them were with their entire households, with children in a lot of instances around those areas around town today?
Yeah, I always think it's cowardly when people choose to bring children to protests, particularly when they're coming for a purpose and they know that there is a potential that people will use violence against police. Protests are not a place for children to be at any time. Obviously, I'm concerned with where these people have come from. It's very early and we'll work closely with health authorities to ensure that we know where these people come from and ensure that we can do what we can to stop the spread of the virus.
How would this protest rate in terms of, if we were to compare it to, because there were freedom protests over the last 18 months, how would this sit? How would this rate compare to those? More violent, bigger, larger turnout?
I think today's protest was absolutely disgraceful when you saw some of the behaviour that was there. I wouldn't like to rate it simply to say that people thought that they were entitled enough to come out and breach the health orders in contravention and put the rest of the community in jeopardy says that this should be rated highly as a protest. We don't need to rate it in terms of scale against others. This was a disgraceful action today.
Minister, Dan Adler talked about and said that there needs to be a ring of
police need to set up a ring of steel around Sydney. Is that something that you're going to look at?
Well, at the moment, there's no need for us. I'm consistently told that we are one of the most highly restricted and locked down cities in the world at the moment. And of course, that we have a stay-at-home order, so there shouldn't be a need for anybody to face a ring of steel around the city because they should be staying at home.
But these pictures are going to be beamed across the world and people are going to look at Sydney and be concerned.
Well, that's right. I mean, what we saw today in Sydney is unfortunately something that we've seen in cities that we all shake our head at. But it's quite clear that Sydney isn't immune from morons as well as those other cities. So my appeal to people is to comply with the health orders. Don't go out, and therefore we won't need to have a ring of steel around the city. So I think Mr. Andrews is slightly misguided and misunderstands exactly what our health orders are.
Do you think, like today's violence obviously shows that there is frustration out there that Sydney-siders are, fed up with this lockdown? How do you interpret this? Because it's obviously that some message is not
Okay, well, anybody who thinks that the government isn't frustrated by this doesn't understand human nature. We're the ones that are going to have to be finding the money to pay our way out of the lockdown. We've all got families as well. I haven't seen my mother for 4 months. I've got a son doing HSC. So anybody who says I'm different, therefore I can protest, and you're the government, so life's good for you. Well, it's not. We have got people working, particularly in the police force, 24/7 on call to make sure that the city complies with the health orders while the health orders do their job. So when government says we're all in this together, that includes government, that includes the lawmakers, that includes the doctors, the nurses, the police officers, and includes those tradies that have got to down tools for a week. But you didn't see 50,000 bricklayers or plumbers go on protest today. It was just a whole lot of half-wits who don't understand how health orders are going to get us out of this quickly.
Do you think that's the right thing to be calling these people half-wits?
Yeah, it is, because what they're going to do is they're going to go back to their communities, probably exposed to COVID-19, and spread the disease again. So you don't have to be Einstein to work out that if the stay-at-home order is to make sure that the virus doesn't go from one person to the next. These people acted today in not only a way that's disrespectful to their fellow citizens, they acted in a way that's going to put everybody else at risk of the virus, which will then in turn prolong the lockdown. Now, if we don't see a spike in this lockdown in areas where these protesters came from in the next week, I'll be very, very surprised. My appeal to them is you've done something bad today, do something good tomorrow, and go and have a test and self-isolate until we know your family and friends are going to be safe.
Are you worried though that this is a turning point, that desperate people are taking to the streets and are no longer following orders?
No, I think what we saw out of the New South Wales Police today is the fact that they can respond to this sort of behaviour swiftly.
Did they though? Because that protest took off and went for at least 3 hours.
Well, it's over now. And if they come out next week, we've got 17,000 police officers across the state. If we have to move them all in the CBD because these clowns want to misbehave, we'll have to do it.
But are you worried there has been a turning point in the public? And
No, because there were turning points last year. There have been turning points in cities all over the world. This was an example today of a few individuals wanting to incite violence, and they'll get pinned for it.
3,500 individuals, and I don't think we've seen that scale before.
Well, we have, but this is a city of 5 to 7 million people. This is a state of 8 million people. So if there are only 3,500 people that want to take the law into their own hand, well, then we're doing very, very well. Thankfully, we've got CCTV. Thankfully, the police have got their body cam. Thankfully, we've got so much social media out there that I reckon we're going to get a good proportion of those 3,500 fined. Hopefully, a few of them in the court as well.
Is there a difference between the people that were going out, and I think to Ellie's point, they were just going out, and they may not have been harmless, they were just going out to protest and voice their concerns, and you allow that often? Is there a difference between the people that went out just to voice their concerns and the violence against police? I think that's the
No, there is no difference, because the risk today is spreading the virus. If you flog a cop, well, you're going to get pinned for that, but the bigger risk is to the community. Because you're going to go home and you're going to infect your entire household, and if, God forbid, they still go into work with COVID-19, they're going to go and infect their work. So when we talk about a super spreader event, today was the best case study I've seen since the beginning of the pandemic.
If this is going to be a super spreader event, what fears do you have we're going to be in lockdown for months?
It's quite possible. You don't have to be an epidemiologist to work out that if this is a super spreader event, we can forget about lifting restrictions next week.
Can
I can't draw on the figures immediately what was last year, but this is certainly the biggest we've had this year.